All right, guys, so we finally got Nicholas Arlen here, who started at PandaDoc as an LDR, then went into an expansion and now leads the account development team. So Nick, appreciate you coming on today. If you could give us a quick story of where you came from, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, as both of you guys know, but maybe the rest of the audience didn't. I started out through Praxis, like I think many people on your podcast here. Got through a boot camp as a training into a new career. I was working in construction before, and through Praxis, I ended up um, here in St. Pete, Florida, and a sales role as an LDR. And that was kind of a shakeup for my life. New place, new job, new everything. But it's been great. I ended up transitioning from an LDR into a new role that I kind of pioneered myself into like expansion to grow our existing clients. And then as of like this week, I'm leading that team from a more official standpoint. So it's been a crazy ride.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So one question I want to ask you right off the bat is now that you've been in account development for a bit and you've moved up and you were part of the, I guess, initial team on PandaDoc that started doing expansion stuff, how crucial do you think it is to a business to focus on expansion?
Well, I mean, your best clients, at least in, I think in SaaS, but really most business models, your existing clients are going to be your best advocates, your best opportunity to bring in additional revenue if you have any kind of subscription model or anything. So nurturing that is just from a customer standpoint, but also just to create revenue, getting revenue out of your existing current clients that you know are going to stay is just more efficient in a lot of ways. I know here we've had a great year of expansion, and it can be a difficult thing to get in your career to be an account manager or anything, but it's rewarding from the revenue standpoint and also just company brand and just the health of the business.
Yeah, Nick, will you walk us through how you first got into the expansion side of things? Like, I imagine there's a story there about seeing value that didn't exist before.
Yeah, for sure. So when I started out at PandaDoc as an LDR, I was doing like lead enrichment and a lot of data stuff. And at about this time last year, I was asked to do a project where the account managers wanted me to enrich some contacts into their accounts with just contacts and different franchises and just a few accounts. So after that was done, we kind of had to ask, okay, what are we doing with this data? And they were going to send it to the SDR team or maybe the account managers themselves were going to run it. And I said, how about I'll build a cadence and I'll try running something. And with just two accounts that we started with, this kind of project of reaching out to these other, like in a kind of an outbound fashion to our existing client base, it was like more successful than we kind of could have expected. So then I was kind of offered a full-time role just doing that. So we kind of just started it. And it kind of just, part of it was luck, but also just taking that leap, just say, hey, if I'm just going to do this, like we don't need to send it to another team. I can just get it done. And it's been fruitful.
And then following that train, so it seems like maybe that's a theme in your career so far is like taking a leap, because I know just personally, I know how you got to the role that you're in today, but will you walk us through, where you left off with expansion and then how you wound up in the role that you're in right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, if we get into specifics, I mean, it's once I pioneered this role, obviously I had to take like a lot of my own initiatives. I kind of had to figure things out, and just kind of that nature helps for sure. And then getting somebody else on board doing the same thing, kind of leading that team from a not official standpoint helped. But then I also I took a leap and applied for other roles within the company recently, and that kind of led them to realize, the people management in my current role, to realize how important I really was, and then officially getting promoted into a more senior role. I don't think that would have happened unless I kind of took that leap, and that wasn't my like intentions, but just kind of letting everybody know that you're going to just do everything, and like, I'm going to create as much value in the company, and wherever I can, that's what I'm going to do.
So Nick, just to go
Yeah.
off of that, what would you, so of course we talk about praxis a lot and how that prepares people. What would you personally say, maybe some good advice for people who are in a company and they're ready to take a leap of faith or progress their career? Like, what type of advice would you give to them to just find a way to work their way up like you did?
Yeah. I think it goes into two things. First, like, make yourself so unexpendable. And by that, by just doing everything in your role where they couldn't that they couldn't not have you. And then once you do that, just do things outside of what is necessarily what your role is supposed to be, to where kind of like make them need you to fill that position, because you kind of just you're the best person to do that. I mean, like I said, I was kind of managed, even though I wasn't had an official like leadership position for most of the time in this position doing this. I still, since it was a small team and I pioneered it, I just naturally have taken like a team lead kind of role within that for 6 months. So it was just kind of natural that it would happen officially.
Yeah, I think that's a great way for people to get into leadership roles is, taking the current team you're on and just start leading the way, just being a good example, always being there to help one another out. So I think that's good advice. And just to piggyback for that a little bit too, just doing the job that you want to get. I would agree with that too. Just being proactive, and um, you're pretty much giving whoever manages that team or that department, like, why not, basically. So it's good
Yeah, for
stuff, man.
sure. I think management, anytime you're offering to like take responsibilities that are beyond your role, um, management's gonna want that. Like, they don't have to like pay for it at the time or anything, I'm almost in all scenarios, they're gonna like allow you to take that initiative and start doing things outside your role. And then once it's at a point, like, if they're looking or hiring, like, the person that's obviously already doing it is gonna be in some way qualified. So that helps you get in.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're 20, and still just getting your career started, like 1 year later, you're in a leadership position because you've prepped yourself just by having done the role before the role even really existed. You kind of like made it. Um, yeah, I wanted to ask also, so obviously like seeing opportunities sounds like something you're really good at, just for opportunities for growth, opportunities to create value. How do those ideas come to you? Or have you noticed any kind of pattern with that, or do you do something to make them come to you? What can others do to see those opportunities in a similar way?
Um, well, it kind of goes back to the idea of sales, which is kind of always looking for problems. That's what we're doing in sales. And even like me in kind of an indirect sales role at this point, I still like, and again, I wanted to stay in the sales org when I did get this promotion, because even though I'm not like a direct seller, I like the idea of finding that problem and then finding a solution for it. So the ideas are kind of just, and anyone's role really, no matter in what company, there's going to be opportunities to just do things better. And you kind of like got to be in the role for a little bit of time to figure out, like, maybe there's something that looks like a problem, but we do it that way for a certain reason. But once you kind of like once you see something that doesn't seem right, like, and you ask around to see why they do that, and either you get a good answer or you don't get an answer or a bad answer, I guess. And that will just kind of teach you, like, maybe this is something I can do. And once you start filling those gaps, like, it just kind of domino effects down.
Yeah, and it seems like sales at a startup in particular is a great place. It's like fertile ground for opportunity because um, things are developing, processes are starting to take shape, but they're not fully formed. And versus if you were to join like a corporate company at your first sales job, like the role is just going to be so different. Um, and you're not going to have as much room for like creative input versus with a startup there's always going to be a window of opportunity that you can seek out because there's always something to try to make better everywhere you turn, whether it's a process or whether it's your ICP. There's always going to be that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, startups are definitely the most, yeah, like, fertile environment for that. But I do believe that any corporate entity, you can find rooms for other opportunities. Like, even if that opportunity isn't necessarily a new role, but just opportunities for you to do better. And if the corporate like company is trying to block that, then that's probably a sign that that's not a good place to be.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I guess what I mean is you'd want to be the person who is able to do that in any environment. And it seems to be easier, at least to me, speculating, to be easier doing that at a startup because there's so much more that could change. But then again, like, yeah, you're right. You should always be seeking out opportunities to help the company grow no matter what, especially if it's a company that is good and one that's worth working for.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, something most valuable I got being involved in the praxis community was kind of the idea that everybody talked about, where when you're working for somebody, it's not really just, I mean, you do have a role and you need to achieve that role. But at the end of the day, it's kind of you're in a contract to create value for that company or person. So, like, you just do that, like, do the things that is going to make the company money or value in some other way. Like, that's, at the end of the day, that's all I see a job as.
Heck,
Yeah.
so it feels like, not feels like, it was less than a year ago that we were just, early stages in the company, and we were all wondering where we were going to be, when we were going to get promoted to full time and stuff. It's been less than a year, and you climbed up pretty quickly, just from full time now into a leadership role. So I want to ask you this. So now that you're leading a team, you're going to start hiring people soon. What's the biggest thing, or what are some of the biggest things you want to see in some of your candidates for you to be like, okay, this person's probably going to be a good fit?
Probably the biggest thing is kind of lack of excuses, and also believing that kind of no work is below you. Because I know I would hire someone like I was before PandaDoc, and at that time my experience was working at McDonald's and then just like a year as a laborer in construction. So, like, it's not relevant, but it's still, um, you kind of like you can't complain about that. I think it's important for people to talk about even roles that most people might seem as, like, not something that's good to talk about, like McDonald's, for instance, and then actually speak about what you learned in a job like that, whether it's anything retail, fast food, or if maybe you're farther along in your career and you're still talking about some, like, SDR experience. All of that is relevant, and not downgrading that, I think, is the most admirable.
And I think that basically in that same regard, it goes to show that you can make anything of it. So for example, like you coming out of a completely different industry, working in fast food than construction and doing this, or we use Jed as an example a lot. He got promoted to a full-time spot pretty much right at 18 years old and arguably our top SDR. So I think it's important for people to understand that even though they don't have experience, that they'll be okay. You don't have to learn one thing or another to become good at a job. You just have to take advantage of the cards you're dealt on the roll and just always be proactive and keep moving way up. So I think you're a good example of someone who, you look at your resume before PandaDoc and it's like, this dude's gonna lead an account development team in a year. Like, no, no way. But it goes to show, man, you can make anything from an opportunity. So
Yeah, that I mean, I feel like it has worked out, but also I think the nature of sales has been one of the things that's been able to power me through that more than anything. Again, I kind of touched on this earlier. I'm not so much interested in the sales part, like the actual direct selling part. I can certainly do it, but what excites me is just the idea, like you are personally accountable for yourself. And as far as experience or whatever, you can just go in sales. Somewhere there's an entry level sales position for anybody. It could be your very first job at some point. Like that opportunity is, I don't know what other like departments or career pathing can get you started. And even if you don't end in sales, I think sales just gives you a power to start from that is, you just can't get anywhere else.
yeah, definitely teaches you a lot of things very quickly. Um, so Nick,
It builds
you're,
grit too.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, one of the big things you learn is you learn how to sell yourself, and you can apply that to almost any aspect in life. So, Nick, I doubt the answer will be anything to do with PandaDoc for this question. You've had a pretty fortunate and successful career here so far, but is there a failure in your career that you have in mind that you learn from? Just something where you feel like you've made a mistake?
Um, Actually, what comes to mind actually is probably from PandaDoc. Maybe um, I don't know how much I would call it as a mistake, but something that I kind of regret that I go back, I would do more is learn how to cold call more. I had some experience with it, but it's been a while at this point, and I feel like I don't have as much of that talent anymore. So going back, I wish I would have made more calls when that was my role.
Why, out of curiosity, why would that be valuable to you right now? Like what's the draw?
Um, Maybe it's not like a straightforward like transfer, but just the idea of it, like you touched on earlier about building grit, sales does. That's transferable to anything, and I think cold calling, well, maybe door to door sales is more gritty, but next to it is cold calling. I mean, that's on your feet, and if you get good at cold calling, like you got a job forever. Just that mental, even if like the art of cold calling itself changes, which it always is, just that mentality of just pounding through so many hangups or just people not answering the phone. That is going to just power you through if you're able to really just dig into that skill.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's interesting, just having started on outbound officially like this week, in the 3 days of cold calls that I've done, I could definitely agree. Like, you can notice yourself sort of changing perspective, the more calls that you make. At least that's what's been happening for me. So like you mentioned, people just don't pick up the phone. So you end up kind of reverse thinking about all the calls you're making. Like you hope they're going to pick up. It's not that you're dreading that they'll pick up because they might reject you. You're like, please answer, please reject me. Like send me to no faster than sending me to maybe, or just keeping me in limbo where I'm going to have to call you again every day for the next 9 days over the course of 3 weeks. Like, it totally changes the way that you perceive calling and making the sale on the phone. But yeah, that's interesting. I can definitely see the value in it. I was just curious to know why you still want a cold call, but hey man, if you want to, hit me up.
So Nick, I know you mentioned grit and sales. Um, just want to share something here. Is this kind of what you're going at here? I know you're a big
What's
fan of
that?
this guy. Is
Yeah,
this?
that's the idea I was having in my head.
Yeah.
It's so gritty and but beautiful at the same time, you know?
Yes, Brandy. This is gritty. That's the Philadelphia Flyers mascot. Represents the city very well. So, but this is who
That
you want to be. This is who in your cold calling career, sales career. This is how you should look within a few years. That is the peak of a good salesperson.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a stretch, but not really. I mean, like that guy, whoever's in there, he's not scared to go out and wear that. And Brandy isn't a scared individual making them cold calls anymore either.
and my beard is coming in as well, my orange beard. So, you know, we can all strive to be the mascot.
Means you're doing well. It's a good start.
All right, Nick, I've got one important final question for you. What is one thing that anyone can do today, right now, to get better at sales?
Don't make excuses. Whether that be like about making calls or getting better about the operational things. Yeah, like sales again, it's all about grit. So even if there is things that is making your job hard because of an external force, a lot of times the best way to actually get through that is just by fighting for yourself. So yeah, I guess my comment's a little bit general, but it's sales. It's you're accountable for yourself. So even if there's something else that's out of your control that is making it harder for you, control what you can and just don't make that excuse. Even if don't even make an excuse in your own head. Just just do it, whatever it is.
Nice. Nike. Insert Nike. Yeah, man. I take a lesson from Jed. He just always has his jobbers on. Oh my God, you guys look like a weird two-headed beast.
I'm here to thank Nick for coming on today in
Oh, I
person.
was just gonna say real quick that like just putting on the headphones is one actionable version of that. Like just put on the headphones and make the call, make the damn call.
Yeah, for sure. And like I actually think just do it can be kind of there's more to it than that because you do want to like think things over and not just do it, but at the same time, like if you're an SDR or whatever, you know what you're doing. So yeah, at that point, just do it. But
Yeah. Well, Nick, thanks for coming on, man. Glad we finally were able to have you. Put her there.